Have you ever noticed how some people seem to carry an almost mysterious control over the atmosphere around them without even saying a word? They don't raise their voice, they don't beg, they simply step back, and suddenly everything around shifts. The energy changes, people begin to wonder, to chase after, to feel something missing. Now imagine if you did the same. If you stopped reacting so quickly to every single thing, if you chose silence instead of the usual automatic response, retreat instead of explosion, what do you think would happen? That is exactly where the power lies. When you stop being constantly available emotionally, physically, and mentally, the people around you feel unsettled because they were used to influencing you through your reactions, through your impulses, through your predictability. But the moment you choose to step back, the entire game shifts. Those who thought they had you figured out realize they actually know nothing about you at all. Karl Marx once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." Now think carefully about this. When you become less accessible, who is the one that truly grows desperate? Who is the one that gets irritated? Who tries to push your buttons just to force a reaction? This reveals much more about them than it does about you. And most of all, it reveals how much you are still being controlled without realizing it. You keep giving your energy to keep peace, to please others, to hold on to people who in truth were never truly by your side. And with every forced yes, every rushed response, every emotional reaction, you hand over a piece of your strength. And at the end of the day, what do you feel? Exhaustion, frustration, and a strange emptiness you cannot even explain. But I will tell you the reason. It is because you are too available for those who do not deserve even a single minute of your silence. This is not about turning your back on the whole world. It is about choosing yourself. It is about learning what Marxism described as individuation, the path of becoming whole, real, and complete. And this process begins when you discover that silence can be stronger than endless arguments, that stepping back when it comes from awareness and not from fear is an act of real power. So I ask you now, looking straight into your heart, how much longer will you let yourself be controlled by the emotions of others? How much longer will you react like a puppet every time someone pokes an old wound? Maybe the time has come to cut those strings, to step back, to become unpredictable. Because the moment you stop being easily available, everything changes. You were raised to always be present, to respond fast, to please, to say yes even when you wanted to say no. Since childhood, you were trained to believe that your worth depended on how available you were for others. But here is a truth few will ever tell you so clearly. This constant availability is not a virtue. It is a cage. And as long as you believe you must always be accessible, emotionally or otherwise, you will be used, drained, and forgotten the moment you are no longer useful. Do you know the reason why? Because being always available makes you predictable. And everything predictable becomes an easy tool. People begin to use you like an emotional switch. They press it whenever they want attention, comfort, or validation, and then they put you aside until the next time. And you don't notice because you are trapped in the illusion that if you are always there for everyone, someone will eventually be there for you. But life does not work that way. Karl Marx also wrote about the persona, the mask we wear so we can be accepted, loved, and recognized. And it is exactly this mask that keeps you overly available. You say you're fine when inside you are suffocating. You answer messages instantly even when you are drained. You explain yourself, defend yourself, and justify yourself as if you owe something to everyone. But the reality is, the more you put yourself at the center of other people's story, the more you vanish from your own. Being endlessly available is a quiet form of self-abandonment. It is a hidden way of seeking approval, running from rejection, trying to control how others see you. But this kind of control always comes at a cost, and the cost is your peace. It is your life energy being spread out as if it were unlimited, when in fact it is not. It is finite, and it must be guarded. The truth is, people who demand you be constantly available do not really want you. They want what you give them: comfort, validation, company, distraction. But the day you change, the day you draw a line, the day you stop reacting on command, those same people become upset, accuse you, tell you that you are acting strange. But it's not because you changed into someone worse, it's because you stopped being convenient for them. And here lies the harshest truth. The more available you are, the less value you carry in their eyes. Because what is too abundant becomes treated like waste. Nobody respects what is handed too easily. Nobody values what they never had to earn. So pause for a moment and reflect. Who actually deserves your time? Who really deserves your attention, your presence, your listening ear? Or perhaps even more important, who deserves your absence? But before you answer that, you must face one important truth. Why do we react so much? Why do we give in so quickly? What hides behind this almost automatic urge to reply, explain, and please? The answer lies in what Karl Marx described as psychic energy. And that is what we need to reflect on next, because your energy is the most valuable thing you have. And if you do not learn to guard it, someone else will use it against you. If these words are connecting with you, then take a moment to click subscribe and support the channel. Thank you. Karl Marx did not see the human mind as some empty machine that simply reacts to every push and pull. For him, our mind is like an energy system, and every thought, every emotion, every action consumes a part of that energy. The real question is, are you choosing where that energy flows, or are you letting the world direct it for you? Every single time you react without thinking, you are burning up that energy. When you defend yourself against a pointless comment, when you argue just to prove you are right, when you get caught in meaningless debates, when you try to please people who don't even respect you, you are spending your inner power on what doesn't feed your soul. And Marxism was clear on this point. Whatever you fight against constantly only grows stronger. The more you react, the more trapped you become. People who live tired and drained are not weak. They are simply misdirected. And do you know what happens to someone who stays exhausted for too long? They become fragile, and when you are fragile, you become easy prey. Manipulative, selfish, and emotionally needy people sense this. They see that you do not know how to guard your energy, that you react to everything, that you are always trying to fix the world, and they take advantage. Marxism explained that a healthy psyche is one that knows how to keep energy within the self. This means learning to say no without guilt, staying silent without feeling cowardly, watching before you act. Because real power is not in reacting instantly. Real power is in choosing wisely when and how to act. And this is only possible when you know yourself well enough to understand your own impulses. How many nights have you lost sleep over a conversation left unfinished? How many hours have you wasted replaying what you should have said or wondering why someone treated you the way they did? This is energy being drained without any return. You are keeping alive ghosts that should have died long ago, and feeding situations that only survive because you keep reacting to them. Psychic energy is like a protective shield. When guarded, it builds presence. You walk into a room and people feel respect without you saying a single word. But when wasted, you become unseen, fragile, reactive. And the world is never kind to those who give in too easily. So begin to notice your own triggers. What makes you react without thinking? What pulls you off balance? These are the exact points where your energy leaks. And this is where your work lies. Not to become cold or distant, but to become more selective, to take full ownership of yourself. And here is one of Marxism's strongest insights. When you save your energy, you break the illusions and projections that others have built around you. And this unsettles them deeply, because now we step into the shadowed ground of hidden manipulation. You believe you are in control. You think your emotional responses are free choices. But the truth is far darker. Most of your reactions are programmed, and those who know how to read this can manipulate you with ease. The opportunist doesn't need to shout, threaten, or force anything. They only need to touch the buttons you leave exposed, and you react the same way every time. Karl Marx described this as projection, the act of placing onto others what we cannot accept within ourselves. But there is another side to this that few notice. While others project onto you, you also become the canvas for those images. And the more emotionally available you are, the more you turn into that blank canvas. You know that friend who only calls when their life is falling apart. That partner who always needs you to rescue them. That person who praises you but only as long as you serve their needs. None of this is random. They are not connecting with you as a person. They are connecting with the role you allowed them to assign you. And why do you agree to that role? Because you are afraid of upsetting them, afraid of being unloved, afraid of being abandoned. The strongest manipulation does not happen in loud commands. It happens quietly, through guilt, when you feel you owe someone, when you believe you must be there, must help, must understand, even when it tears you apart inside. And here is the most crucial truth. The manipulator doesn't have to control you directly. They only need you to keep reacting in the same old way. But when you stop reacting, everything breaks. When you begin to say no, when you answer with silence, when you step back instead of defending yourself, the false roles begin to collapse. The mask they placed on you falls. And now people feel shaken because they no longer know who you are. Worse still, they are forced to face themselves. And not everyone is ready for that. Your unavailability becomes a mirror that shows them their own emptiness. The silence you hold up makes them hear the noise inside themselves they've long avoided. And that is when the attacks come. The criticism, the emotional games, the drama, not because you are wrong, but because you stopped serving as their easy mirror. Marxism reminded us, we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that is exactly what happens. When you step back, when you refuse to fuel the cycle, the hidden shadow of the other begins to surface. And this is unbearable for those who always used you as their escape. But what about you? Are you truly ready to face the discomfort of being misunderstood, rejected, or even criticized for protecting your own peace? Are you ready to sit with the silence that follows after a rupture? Because it is inside that very silence that a new kind of strength is born. And that is what we are going to reflect on now. In this next part, you will begin to see why silence can be one of the most powerful weapons of the human mind, and how it completely shifts the balance between you and the world around you. The modern world is filled with noise. Everyone wants to talk, wants to answer quickly, wants to win meaningless arguments and prove themselves right, even if it costs them their inner calm. But there is a power that very few know, and even fewer truly master. It is the power of silence. Not the silence of weakness or avoidance, but a deliberate, clear, conscious silence. The kind of silence that is not absence, but a louder presence. Kyung understood silence not as emptiness, but as fertile ground for inner growth. When you stop reacting, you start observing. And through observation, you begin to see patterns that were once hidden. Repeated emotional loops, subtle manipulation, cycles of self-betrayal. Silence gives clarity, and clarity is dangerous for those who only seek to control you. Have you noticed how some people become uneasy when you don't respond? When you don't justify yourself? When you simply step back? It is not because they truly miss you. It is because your silence steals their control of the story. While you are talking, you are still trapped in the game. But when you go silent, you change the rules. And that unsettles anyone who survives on your reaction. True silence is not the lack of a voice. It is mastery over your own inner energy. It is the refusal to let yourself be dragged by someone else's storms. It is the conscious choice not to enter battles that do not deserve your effort. Marx once suggested that individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, requires distance, because only in silence can you finally hear yourself without the interference of the crowd. But don't be mistaken, silence has its cost. It will remove people who only valued you for the role you played in their lives. It will make you seem strange to those who only looked at you through their own expectations. It may even make you appear distant, cold, or proud. But all of these are reactions from those who never cared for your depth, only for your usefulness. And here is the tough truth. The more you mature, the more careful you become with your words, because you realize that every phrase is an investment of energy, and not everyone is worthy of your truth. Sometimes silence is not withdrawal, it is sovereignty. It is the language of those who no longer need to prove anything to anyone. Silence is unsettling because it forces the other person to face their own mind, their own inner noise. And this unease says more about them than any argument you could ever make. You don't need to explain why you are absent. Your absence speaks for itself. And those who feel threatened by it reveal how much they depended on your instability to keep their own false sense of control. But the strongest silence is not the one that disturbs others. It is the silence that rebuilds you from within, the silence that links you to something greater than outside approval. It is in this space, free from demands, that you start to gather back your vital strength and reconnect with your essence. And this is exactly what we need to think about in the next part. Because it is not enough to cut out outer noise. You need to learn how to direct your energy wisely, to choose where it flows, where it remains, and most importantly, where it must never be wasted. It is time to learn how to be careful with your own soul. If you are in the process of reclaiming your energy and building strong boundaries, you will find real value in my book, Beyond the Shadow. It explains Jung's most important ideas in clear ways and gives you the tools to protect your energy, set limits, and reconnect with your real self. Link is in the pinned comment. It is useless to only understand this in theory if in practice you still say yes when you mean no, still reply to messages that annoy you, still take part in empty conversations, and still keep relationships that exist only out of habit. Awareness without action is only another way of lying to yourself. Real change begins when you firmly choose to become selective, and this takes emotional discipline. Conscious unavailability is not about being rude, arrogant, or uncaring. It is about not being open to everyone at every moment for any reason. It is about taking full ownership of your own energy, your time, your peace, and it begins with small choices. Not answering immediately, taking a breath before reacting, stepping away from arguments before you get pulled into disorder, turning off your phone without guilt, saying not today, saying I am not interested, saying I will not get involved. But here is the most important lesson. You do not have to justify why you are absent. You do not have to explain your silence. You owe nothing to anyone except yourself. And for many people, this is unforgivable. Because when you refuse to explain, you take away their power to trap you in a story where you are always the kind, available, understanding one. Karl Marx also pointed out that every journey of individuation requires a form of isolation. But it is not the dark isolation of despair. It is a sacred retreat, a time of listening to your own voice without the crowd's noise, a time of rebuilding your identity, not from the eyes of others, but from your own center. Do you want to know a good test of your growth? Watch who starts moving away when you become quieter. Watch who tries to provoke you when you stop reacting. Watch who tells you that you have changed when you finally start protecting yourself. These are not signs of mistakes. They are signs of your freedom. At first, being unavailable will feel heavy. You may feel guilty. You may believe you are selfish. You may be told you are too hard. But this is only part of the process of breaking old patterns. You have spent your life being trained to place yourself second. So of course, change will feel uneasy, not only for you, but for all those who benefited from your older version. Conscious unavailability is the root of self-respect. When you say no to the world, you are saying yes to yourself. When you leave toxic spaces, you declare that your peace is worth more than false connections. And when you stop explaining yourself, you finally begin to be respected, even if by only a few. But not everyone will be ready for this presence, because your emotional absence will show them wounds they do not want to face. It will reveal how much they relied on your emotional chaos to feel steady. And that is when the breaking point comes. With that break comes hurt, distance, loneliness, and the feeling that you are losing something, when in truth you are freeing yourself. But what comes after that? What follows the distance? What is born from the silence? In the final part, we will reflect on this. The rebirth that only appears when you are brave enough to be misunderstood, to stand alone, and to become whole by yourself. When you stop being available to everyone, something deep begins to happen. First, there is silence, a silence so heavy it seems to shout inside you. You ask yourself if you did the right thing, if you are being too hard, if you are letting go of people who cared. But slowly that silence changes. It begins to cleanse, to soothe, to restore. Then comes solitude, but not the loneliness of emptiness. It is the solitude of full presence, your own. The solitude of the strong, of the one who no longer betrays themselves just to keep others around. And in that place where there was once noise, peace arrives. Where there was once restlessness, calm takes its place. Where there was once neediness, a new kind of power appears. The power of being whole within yourself. Marx said that the path of individuation, of becoming your real self, demands that you step away from the crowd, that you take off the mask, that you walk alone for some time. And that is exactly what you are doing when you choose to be unavailable. You are not running from the world. You are coming back to yourself. At this moment, you stop being only a responder and start being a creator. You no longer let circumstances mold you, but instead, you shape your reality from within. The people who feel shaken by your absence show you that they never wanted you, only the role you played. And now that you no longer fit, they don't know what to do with you. And that is your freedom. You may lose people, but you will find yourself. You may walk away from places, but you will meet your own essence again. You may be misunderstood, but at last, you will be respected. Because when you are no longer available for everything, you become rare, valuable, unforgettable. And don't be fooled. This is a rebirth, a fresh start, the beginning of a life where you are no longer open to scraps of affection, to mind tricks, to emptiness dressed up as love. Now you only accept what resonates with your peace, with your truth, with your wholeness. And if you have made it this far, it is because a part of you is already prepared for this new road. A part of you already knows that being loved means nothing if it requires you to abandon yourself. And that true self-love starts the moment you choose yourself, even if it means being alone for a time. Now I ask you, are you ready to be misunderstood, rejected, or even disliked for the sake of your freedom within? Are you prepared to pay the price of being yourself? If these words touched you, if they spoke to you, write in the comments, I choose my peace. Let's see how many of us are ready for this new step. And remember, keep watching the next video. It is more important than you imagine. See you there.